Welcome to this lecture on multiple and partial correlation. Today we are going to explore how statisticians untangle complex webs of relationships in the real world. We will move beyond simple one-to-one connections to understand the bigger picture, learning how multiple variables interact and how to isolate true cause and effect. Let us start with multiple correlation. Imagine trying to predict how tall a tree will grow. If you only look at sunlight, you miss the whole story. You also need to consider soil quality and water. Multiple correlation is the statistical tool that measures how well a whole group of independent factors works together to predict a single outcome. Instead of looking at one-to-one relationships, it looks at a many-to-one relationship. This is incredibly useful because real-world outcomes are rarely caused by just one single thing. To measure this relationship, we first need a model. This formula represents our multiple linear regression model. Conceptually, it combines all our predictors to make a best guess about the outcome. Y hat is the predicted value of our dependent variable. Beta 0 is the y-intercept, our baseline when all predictors are 0. The other beta symbols are regression coefficients, showing how much the prediction changes for a 1-unit increase in each predictor. The x variables are our independent predictors. When a predictor increases, its corresponding beta determines if the predicted outcome goes up or down. Now that we have our predicted values, we can calculate the multiple correlation coefficient, denoted by the capital letter R. This formula calculates the simple Pearson correlation between the actual observed data points, y, and the model's predictions, y hat. The numerator measures the covariance, how the actual and predicted values vary together. The denominator scales this by their individual standard deviations. R always falls between 0 and 1. A value of 1 means perfect prediction, while 0 means the predictors are completely useless. If the predictions improve, the value of R increases towards 1. Often, we look at the square of R, known as the coefficient of determination, or R squared. This formula tells us the proportion of the total variance in the dependent variable that is explained by our independent variables. SSR stands for the sum of squares due to regression, which is the variation the model successfully captures. SST is the total sum of squares, the total spread in the original data. If R squared is 0.80, it means 80% of the changes in our outcome are explained by our chosen predictors. An increase in explained variance directly increases R squared. Let us see this with a concrete example. A researcher is studying factors affecting a student's final exam score, using hours studied and hours slept as predictors. We are given that the total sum of squares for the exam scores is 500, and the sum of squares due to regression is 400. We are asked to find the coefficient of determination and the multiple correlation coefficient. We start by setting up the formula for R squared, which is the ratio of explained variance to total variance. This approach was chosen because it directly uses the sums of squares provided. Continuing with our calculation, we substitute the given values. Dividing 400 by 500 gives us an R squared of 0.80. This means 80% of the variance in exam scores is explained by study and sleep habits. To find the multiple correlation coefficient R, we take the square root of 0.80. Since multiple correlation is always positive, we take the positive root, giving us approximately 0.894. This indicates a very strong positive linear relationship, meaning these factors are excellent predictors of academic success. Now that we understand multiple correlation, let us look at a different scenario. Imagine ice cream sales and shark attacks. They are strongly correlated. But does ice cream attract sharks? No. Both are driven by summer heat. To find the true relationship between ice cream and sharks, we must mathematically freeze the temperature, so it cannot affect our data. This process is called partial correlation. It lets us see the pure connection between two things by stripping away the distracting noise of a third variable, preventing us from being fooled by spurious or false correlations. This brings us to the formula for first-order partial correlation. This formula calculates the correlation between variable 1 and variable 2 while keeping variable 3 constant. The term R12 is the raw, simple correlation between the first two variables. The terms R13 and R23 are their correlations with the control variable. The numerator subtracts the overlapping effect of the third variable. The denominator adjusts the scales by removing the variance explained by the control variable. If the result drops to 0, the original relationship was entirely caused by the third variable. If the control variable has no effect, the partial correlation remains equal to the raw correlation. To better understand this, let us look at a Venn diagram. The three circles represent the total variance for each of our three variables. Where the circles overlap, the variables share variance and are correlated. The shaded region represents the partial correlation between the first two variables. Notice how this shaded area completely excludes any part of the third circle. This visually demonstrates how partial correlation isolates the unique relationship between two variables by entirely removing the overlapping influence of a third control variable. Let us apply this to a real example. A researcher finds a simple correlation of 0.70 between shoe size, variable 1, and vocabulary, variable 2. This seems strange, but age, variable 3, might be influencing both. The correlation between shoe size and age is 0.80 and vocabulary and age is 0.60. We need to calculate the partial correlation, controlling for age. We start by plugging these three simple pairwise correlations into our mathematical filter to remove the overlapping influences. This formula is chosen to isolate the direct relationship. Continuing with the calculation, we multiply the control correlations in the numerator, getting 0.48, which is the shared overlapping effect. In the denominator, we square 0.80 and 0.60 to get 0.64 and 0.36. Subtracting in the numerator gives 0.22, the remaining correlation after overlap is removed. Inside the square roots, subtracting from 1 leaves 0.36 and 0.64, representing the remaining unexplained standard deviations for each variable. For the final steps, we take the square roots in the denominator, getting exactly 0.60 and 0.80. Multiplying these gives 0.48, which acts as a scaling factor. Dividing 0.22 by 0.48 gives a final partial correlation of approximately 0.458. The original strong correlation dropped significantly once we controlled for age, showing it was largely a spurious effect. However, a moderate relationship still remains, meaning vocabulary and shoe size have some connection independent of each. So we have calculated these correlations, but this brings us to an important question. Do these relationships actually exist in the real world, or did we just get lucky with our sample? To answer this, we use significance tests. A significance test helps us decide if a result is genuine or a random fluke. We start by assuming the null hypothesis, the pessimistic view that there is absolutely zero correlation in the population. We then calculate a test statistic. If the probability of our sample data is very low under this assumption, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude the correlation is real. For a partial correlation coefficient, we use a student's t-test. This formula evaluates how far our sample partial correlation is from zero. The letter t is the calculated test statistic. The term R12.3 is our sample partial correlation. The letter n represents the total number of observations in our sample. We subtract 3 in the numerator because we lose 3 degrees of freedom for the 3 variables we are estimating. The denominator represents the standard error, scaling the statistic so we can look it up in standard probability tables. As the sample size increases, the t-statistic generally becomes larger, making it easier to prove significance. Let us test the significance of our previous partial correlation between shoe size and vocabulary, which was 0.458. Suppose this data came from a sample of 39 children. We want to test the null hypothesis that the true partial correlation is 0. We need to calculate the t-statistic. We substitute 0.458 for the partial correlation and 39 for the sample size into our t-test formula. This sets up the specific equation to convert our correlation into a standardized t-score, which is the correct approach for testing partial correlations. Continuing the calculation, we subtract 3 from 39 to get 36 inside the top square root, representing our degrees of freedom. In the denominator, we square the partial correlation value, giving us approximately 0.2097, which is the variance explained. We then evaluate the square root of 36, which is exactly 6. In the denominator, subtracting the squared correlation from 1 gives 0.7903. We are steadily simplifying the expression to isolate the final t-value, ensuring each mathematical operation is done in the correct order. Finally, we multiply 0.458 by 6 in the numerator to get 2.748. We take the square root of the denominator, which evaluates to approximately 0.889. Dividing the numerator by the denominator gives a final t-statistic of approximately 3.09. In statistics, a t-value greater than 2 or 3 usually indicates a very low probability that the result is a random fluke. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude there is a genuine, statistically significant partial correlation between shoe size and vocabulary. To summarize, multiple and partial correlations are foundational tools in modern data science. Multiple correlation allows us to build complex models that predict outcomes based on dozens of different factors. Partial correlation acts as a statistical lie detector, helping us uncover true cause and effect relationships by stripping away the misleading influence of hidden variables. Finally, significance tests ensure our findings are genuine and not just random noise. By mastering these concepts, you now have the ability to see through the noise and understand the true hidden structure of complex data.